Hi. So in this video, I'm going to continue the page object model and it's part two. So the basic concept behind the page object model is that it's a design pattern, right? So we design our framework to make it more readable, manageable, and to save a lot of time. And to also the most important is to reuse the code, right? So to implement it for every web page of the application, let's say that if you're working on a login page, you need to create what you need to do. You need to create, for example, if you're working on this page, you need to create a page card, right? This page is card. You need to create a page for this. First, find all the elements and develop your method to perform operation on this page. All right. So let's go back to this. So for example, this is a page that I was working in the last tutorial. So right now, let's do some more tests. All right. So what we need to do, let's say that I want to verify the title, right? This title, I want to verify that. So how can I do that? Again, as I said that for every test case, we need to, for the test cases, we create a class, right? So let's create this and call this, let's say, test title, right? So let's call this test title. And what we need here, we need to create a reference variable of the WebDriver, right? So after we do that, what we need to do, we need to write our test. For example, this is our test, and we want to verify title, right? So let's say that we want to verify title. Now what we need to do, we need to, this is pretty straightforward. We just need to verify the title. Assert equals. What is the title? The title for that page is, I believe that it's Swap Labs, and it's capital Swap Labs. And now we need to get that from the web page, right? So again, this part only verifies the title. Now, again, as I told you that we need the before and after method. Before method to open up the browser, set up the browser, and after method to close the browser, right? So we already have them here. And what I just need to do is I need to copy that, okay? I need to copy and just paste it right here in my test. All right, so we need this, okay? Now if you run it, let's run it again, and it's gonna go and verify the title of our page. All right, so the page is verified, meaning that it is as expected. Let's actually continue to do more tests, right? So let's say that let's say do something else, and let's say verify this. Let's verify a label, right? For example, this label. If you want to verify that label, what we need to do, for example, let's say that you want to make sure that this label is as expected, right? So let's get that label. What we need to do, it is h4, right? The tag is h4, and then we can use the expansion of relative expand. So let me actually drag this a little bit on this side so that you guys can see. What we need to do is h4, and we're going to use the text function, right? Text function. And there you go. So we got this. And now I got, well, because this is the login page, as I told you that everything when it comes to the login page goes to the login page, right? We need to go back and we just need to write our element. So what was that? So let's say that, let's call this by, and what was that? We can call this username, right? Username label, let's say username label. And how we're going to find this by the XPath and paste that. So now we need to return this, right? We need to get the text and compare that to the actual text that we get it from the business side, from business analyst, right? So let's say that I'm going to, and again, the return type, because I'm going to get the text and return it, right? You have to put the string. And right now we can say whatever name, but make sure that it matches username label, right? Username label. All right, return username label. Now what we need to do is we need to driver. So let's see if we can directly return this driver, find elements, and we already have our element, and it was username label, right? Username label dot get text. Okay, and that's it. Now we are returning this text. Okay, so what's going on here? All right, so you know what, let's actually store this into an element, store this into string, and I'm going to call this username. That's it. And now I want to do what? Return this username, right? Return this username. Okay, so now we develop our method so that it goes and return that text, right? Return this text. And let's actually, what I need to do, let's say that I need to get this text from the business side, right? So let's say I'm getting this from the business side, and they tell me that this is the text that should appear on the website. So let's create another test. So what we need to do is to create another test, and I'm going to call this. What I need to call this, for example, test user name, let's say label, right? So I want to make sure that this is the correct username label. So in that case, again, what I need to do is, you see that we are going to do the repetition again, and then I need to write our method, and let's say public void, and I want to verify username label, right? Username label. And right now, again, what I need to do, I need to create the objects of this page. So there is we need to pass our driver, right? And after that, what you need to do is now we can actually use that. So what we need to do, as I said, that let's say that you get this text, actual username text, right? Actual username text. And let's say that we get this from the business. And what was the text? This is from the text. We get this from the requirement. Now we want to make sure that the text that comes from the website is also the same, right? We can say assert equals. We can put the actual, and we're going to put also the one that comes from the website. What was that? Return username label, right? Okay. And right now, this is ready. Okay, this is ready. But again, I think we are missing something, right? We need the before and after method. Why do we need it? Because the before method opens up set up the WebDriver, open up the website, and the after method close the WebDriver. For every test annotation, it does that. Okay. Anywhere you see the test annotation, it works like that. Okay. So what was the test label? And now I need to paste it right here. So what I do now, I'm gonna run this, okay, and see that if the test pass or fails. So, all right, so the test pass, meaning that the website is good. I mean, the text on the website is good. So now let me actually show you something here. As you can see, right? As you can see in this test case, we have repetition, for example, right? For example, for this test case, all test case, we have the before method and also we have the after method. For the other test case, we have the before method and we have the after method. In the same case, you see that for all these. So now we don't want to write this over and over for every, test cases. How we can avoid this so that we can only put in one place and use it. We don't want to write it over and over because this is very time consuming, right? So what we can do, and also if you notice at the login page, right? At the login page, we have the constructor. For example, we have a constructor, right? We have a constructor. If you create another login page, let's say that I want to create another login page, right? So let's go to the website. And first of all, let's say I'm going to log in. Okay. Login. So I'm gonna log in this page. So, all right, now I want to create another page for products, right? Let's say I want to create a page for products, and I'm going to create that. So according to the page object model, for every page, you have to create a different, for every page, you have to create a separate class. Okay, I'm going to create pages, and I'm going to create another class. So what I'm going to call this, I'm going to call this products, right? So products. So right now, what I need to do, again, what I need to do, I need to have a reference variable of the driver. Now I need to create, again, I need to create a constructor. So I need to create a constructor. Right now, as you can see, in product page, we have the constructor. And also in the login page, we have the constructor. You see that this keeps repeating. So how we can do something to avoid this repetition, to avoid this creating constructor, and also to avoid keep writing before and after method, so that in one place that everyone can use that. So in that case, this is pretty straightforward. We can, there are some methods that we can do that. So first of all, actually, let me actually write some, the method that we are looking for, okay? So what we need to do in the utilities, right click and go create a new class. So I'm gonna call this class driver, okay? So I'm gonna call this class driver. Then what I need to do, is I'm gonna create this in one place so that we don't have to do it over and over. So the first thing I need to do, I need to create a constructor, but I'm gonna make this constructor what? I'm gonna make this constructor private because nobody can access that. We don't want to access anyone, but we are gonna write a method so that everyone can access this method to create the driver. All right. So I'm gonna put this as a static because we do not need the object. And what I need to do is web drivers, and I'm gonna call this driver. Okay. Then what I need to do is, all right. So this is our method. Okay. This is our method, and what I need to do is, so this is basically that we are going to use this from now on to create our drivers, to instantiate our driver. So let's say that I can say that if the driver, what we need to do, I forgot to put the this as a, we also need to have the instance variable of the driver, right? So I'm going to put this as a driver. All right. So now what we need to do is say that if the driver is null, that's already like close, right? It's null. If the driver, let's say that if driver is null, then what you can do, I can say that now I can say, for example, let's say I'm gonna just put a string here. And what I need to do is, let's call this browser, right? So let's call this browser. For now, I'm going to use Chrome, right? So now we can actually use a switch statements. We can use a switch statements to, I can say that switch. And now we are going to put this browser as a, for example, based on the name of the browser, we are going to write our condition. For example, we can say that case, and we can say that if it is Chrome, what it should do, right? So if it's Chrome, then in that case, we are going to do this, right? WebDriver manager, and again, dot. What I need to do is Chrome.setup, right? And what else I need to do? Then I need to instantiate the Chrome driver, okay? And after that, what I need to do is driver. I need to maximize my driver, right? Manage dot when do dot maximize, right? So this one basically maximize my driver. All right. So in the same case, I can actually have more method, right? More cases. Let's say, for example, If we have some other stuff, I actually need a break statement here, right? I need a break. And in the same case, let's say that I can say that if all right, so what I need to do is I say case, and same I can say Firefox, right? Firefox. So if the driver is Firefox, what you need to do in that case, then I can say that WebDriver manager, right? Then this is the same stuff. We're going to use Chrome driver, and then you can set up, right? So after the setup, we need to set up the Chrome driver. Oh, sorry, the Firefox. And what else I need to do? I need to use a break. Okay. So also we need to use the default. All right, we need to use the default. And let's say that if the name doesn't match, then we can say throw an exception. We're going to throw this exception, right? We're going to throw this exception. And what we need to do is, and we're going to run through a runtime exception. What's the message? If the browser doesn't match, we can say wrong browser name, right? Wrong browser name. So instead of creating constructors for the WebDriver reference variable everywhere, we can write a method, right? We can write a method and call this method from any places that we are looking for, okay? And then after this, what I need to do is I just need to return the driver, right? Then in that case, I can say return driver. That's it. Now we want to return that driver. And in the same way, we can also have another method, right? We can have another method to close the driver instead of like going through through this all the time. We can have another method to close the driver. For example, I can say pub static, then void. We don't want to return anything, and I just want to close driver. So all right, we're going to close the driver. And again, we can say that if driver is not null, right? If driver is not null, not being in use, then what you should do, you should driver dot quit, then close the driver, okay? And set the driver, let's say, to null. All right, so this is also, set the driver to nulls. All right. So this is the as I said, this is the more professional way to create, instantiate your make a reference variable of your drivers, and also to use a method instead of like creating every page and every test method. We just need to create in one place and then call this over and over. All right. So also you probably heard of that. We don't want to, like, let's say we don't want to directly write our method, our test data, like username and password, right? So let's say that I want to get my username and password from a file, right? So how can I do that to get the username and password from a file? Then in that case, right click on your project. We are going to use the properties, right? Properties class in Java. So properties class in Java basically is used to store your value in form of key and value. I will show you. Then in that case, you can write a method to get those from the external files to a file other than like directly passing that, okay? So what I need to do, I'm going to create a file, all right? So let's call this credential, right? Cred dot, and as I said, properties. So the extension must be properties, okay? Cred dot properties. All right, so this is our file, cred dot properties. So here, just created. And now what we need to do, for example, I can say user, right? Can say user, meaning username. You can put your username, for example. What's the username for that? That we are going to need it. For that website is standard _ user. And now again, we can, for example, we can say password, and the password is, you see that the value are stored in form of key value, right? In form of key value secret. and then it was sauce. All right, so now we created this. And now what we need to do, we need to read this, right? Write a method to read this. Let's say that I'm gonna call this configuration reader, right? Configuration reader. So this is my class, and now I need to write a method to go and grab the value based on the key from that properties file. So what I can do, as I told them, we are going to use the properties class in Java. So what I need to use, I'm going to use public static, right? So let's call this method. Let's say that I'm going to call string type. The return type is a string, and I'm going to call this properties, right? Get properties. And now what I need to do, I need to pass a key, right? We are going to pass a key to get the value of that key. So what else I need to do is, now I need to have the file reader, right? Oops. I need to do the file reader. There's the file reader. And now what I need to do is, let's call this reader. Okay. And now what I need to do is, let's say that I have to create the object of the file readers. And now I'm going to put my file name. So what was the file name? It was create.properties, right? Properties. All right. So this is the we load our files into the file reader so that the file can be read, right? Now I need to what I need to do is I need to create this, put into the try catch block, right? To avoid the exception. All right. So now after we load this into the file reader, right? So that it can be read, what else do we need to do? So after we do that, we need to do that. We need to use we need to create an object of the properties file, right? And let's say that, as I told you, that we are going to use the properties. Okay, so after we use the property, we are going to load this file, right? Load this file into the properties. And so after we load it, and what we need to do is, so what's going on here now? Okay, so because this one is inside, it's not reading that. So let's actually, what I need to do, I need to copy that and paste it inside the class, right? Inside the method so that it can be read. All right, so let's do this. And I don't need that, the class. All right, so right now it should read because, okay, right now it reads because it was inside. So what else, what I need to do right now, let's say that let's actually have the exception for that as well. So after it reads, right? So after it reads, what I need to do, I can store this into the, and then I use the object dot get properties, right? Get properties. So I use the get property of this method. I use the get property of this method so that I can get the text from my properties, from properties file. String properties, and after it store it, let's actually return this. Let's return. Okay, what's going on here? Oh yeah, we forgot to, oh, I forgot the name. So let's get value, right? Whatever name you want to put for that. And then I'm gonna set this as a, oops. And I'm gonna return the value. So basically this is pretty straightforward, right? We are loading the files, this file that has the username and password, right? So we are loading this file into the file reader so that it can be read, so that the Java can read it. And then after read, we are going to load it into the properties file. To use the properties file, we need to create an object of that. So after you use the object, you use the load method so that your file can be loaded into this properties file. So after you load it, you using the object and you're using a method to go and get the key. So whenever we pass the key, for example, when we pass the user, it's going to give us this one, standard user. And when we are say password, it's going to give us the secret sauce, right? So, and after this is going to get us, and after it gets, let's say if it gets password, they're going to give us the password, and then it's going to return the password for us, right? It's going to return the password for us. So if we actually, this is pretty straightforward. So let's say here, right, we directly write our username and password for this test. Right now, instead of doing that, what I can do, I can say configuration, right? You remember that we created this class, and now what was the method? Get properties, right? So I'm gonna put the properties, what I'm gonna put as a user, right? So in the same way here also, you don't need to directly type it in here. You can get it from that method that we write. You can also say, and that was password, right? Password. Okay, so now we need to have the method signature. There you go. So right now, instead of directly writing here, we are going to get it from this method that we write. This method that we write, this class and method, the class name is configuration, and the method is get property. We use the object class. This is basically just comes from the Java. It's used to read a file and return a value based on the key value pair. Okay, right now, so let's actually run that test. Okay, run the test now. It's going to get the username and password from the. All right, so as you can see, now it gets the name from the properties file instead of directly typing in here. We pass in user and password. So as you can see, we have here user and password, okay? All right, so this was about this one. And let's actually, as I said, that we also successfully created another method to construct the WebDriver, right? To construct the WebDriver so that we don't do it over and then over. So right now, if we want to implement this, right? If you want to implement this, how we can do that, right? So let's say, as I told you, that we don't want to repeat this before and after method over and over, right? So in that case, what we can do, we can, for example, this is a TestBase, right? And then we can create a class, and let's call this class TestBase, right? TestBase. Why we call it TestBase? Because this will be used by all our test cases. So let's create the class. And now what we need to do is we need to copy the before and after test method and this method, right? We need to copy this and this method so that we don't have to repeat it over and over. All right. So let's say that what I need to do is, let's go to one of the test file, for example, here. I'm going to copy that, right? I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to copy and go back to my TestBase, right? So this is my TestBase. And right now, as you can see, there is an error because it doesn't recognize. So we can do this, for example, driver, but we don't want to create this reference variable over and over. We want to get from the class that we just created. So what we can do here, we can use our method that we just created. Driver.get driver, right? So what's going on here? All right. Yeah, so since we already actually have this part, right? We already have this part, and what we need to do, we don't we already defined this part into the class, right? We already defined that. So what we need to do right now, let's actually, what else do we need to do? I'm not going to use this, right? I'm not going to use this reference variable. I'm going to use the one that comes from the class, okay? So this is where we write our method. And now what we need to do is, for example, first thing I need to maximize the window, right? And then what I need to do is driver.getDriver. Now I need to pass my URL. So again, we are going to get the URL from the configuration file. Okay, so what we can do here, for example, we can say URL, URL, and then what we need to do is configuration.readers, but we didn't have any URL for this. Okay, so let's actually call this site. Okay, I'm gonna call this site. And what I need to do, I need to put that. Okay, so this is the website, right? This is the website. What I need to do, I need to copy that and just paste it. All right, I just need to paste it right here, right? So this is the one that we are going to use, site or URL, doesn't matter which one. So right now I'm going to get it that from the site, right? And you can say site. So right now we are going to get this value from the properties file. So again, we just need to add the meta signatures. And right now I'm going to pass this URL. All right. And we don't need this part because, as I told you, and in the same way, when it comes to driver, we are going to get that from the method that we just type. Okay, driver.get. And that's it. So right now, this is called TestBase, right? We just write it once. And what you need to do, you need to go back to your test cases. For example, here, you do not need all these, right? You do not need before and after method. You only need to do what? You only need to do extend and then call it TestBase, right? TestBase is here. TestBase, that's it. Now we don't need to create the object of that class. All right. So now when it comes to the pages, we need to do some stuff in the pages as well, right? So what we need to do, we need to go to the pages. Let's go to the pages because there are some error. So we don't need that, right? We don't need this constructor because it already comes from the driver class, right? And now here, again, we need to use our driver, right? Driver.get driver. And in the same way, this one also, driver.get driver. And we are going to use all these from one place. Driver.get driver. And the same way, going to apply to this one, the get drivers. And we're going to use the driver.get driver. And this one is also the same way, right? Driver.get driver. So as you can see, now this class is good. We don't need a constructor in every page, right? We don't need a constructor in this every page. And now we have another page, so we don't have here anything, and we don't need this constructor, as I told you, because now it comes from the driver class. All right, so let's go back to the test. And right now we don't need this, right? There's an error say that we don't need this. All right, so let's run this test again and see that we are going to accomplish the same thing, right? Constructor. Okay, so what here also we are going to, all right, so now we have to do the same thing for all other tests. So we don't need this, also this, all the test cases, we do not need individual username before and after method. We just need to extend this and get it from the TestBase, right? We do not need to do that over and over, that's it. And here we do not need this one. And also all the test cases, we have another test. Again, you see that these are all repetition. We do not need before and after method. The only thing we need to do is extend that class, and it was called TestBase, right? That's it. And we do not need this. All right. And in the same way, the title is also the same. We do not need the before and after. You see that there's a lot of repetition because we are doing over and over. And I'm going to extend only the TestBase. Okay. And here is the same because we are going to get from our driver.get driver. That's it. So this one should be ready right now. So let's run one of these test cases, for example, this one, and I'm going to run this now. Okay, so let's see why it did not close the browser. What's going on? Oh, the test passed. So the test passed, and the only thing is that we are going back to the TestBase, okay? So the before and after method driver.close. I don't know why it didn't close the driver. Let's actually, maybe I run by the class. I have to run by the test, right? So it has to be run by the test. Because before and after method, remember that before and after method only works with a test method. If you run everything by the class, then it doesn't work. Make sure that you do it by the test method, okay? All right, so again, we run into issues. Let's say why it does not, because the before and after comes from the TestBase. So let's see what's the issues. And then we are going back to the, if the driver is not known, oops, here. Okay, driver.close driver. All right, so let's go back to our TestBase. There's our TestBase here. Oops, my bad. So I used the get driver instead of using the close driver, right? So that must be close driver. Right now, this one should work, okay? So let's run it again. All right, so now it closes the browser too. So now in this tutorial, you have seen how much time we can save by using the page object model, right? So for example, in this test, every test, we used to have a before and after method. Right now, we don't need to do that. For every single method, we don't need to write before and after method. We just need to, for example, we write our method here in the driver class. Sorry, and in the TestBase, we wrote a method, two methods, before and after method. In the TestBase, we don't need to write this over and over for every single test case, because every single test case needs the before and after method. Why? Because before methods set up the driver, open the browsers, and after method closes the browser. We need this for every single test case, but it doesn't mean that we have to write it over here and waste a lot of time. We can put this inside a class as I put it, and then you can simply extend this inheritance, right? Extend this, and as soon as you extend it, you see that we have one test. As soon as you extend it, it's going to execute that before and after method. Before and after method execute the after precedence, right? It execute before your test case. So before method execute before, and after method execute after it method. After your test method, sorry. So, and also you can notice that you use a configuration file, because this is way more professional to get your properties from a file instead of directly typing into that. This is in the real world. You will see that all the values are typed in the properties file. All right, so this is part 2 of the page object models, and I had some more methods so that to avoid the duplications of the methods and to write it over and over. I created only one constructors for the driver, and in the same way, and there will be another part for a page object models, and that in the third part I will also improve more this, and also I will create some other more methods and take a screenshot of how we can improve more this to make it more manageable, to make it more readable, your testing framework. All right, so that's it about this tutorial. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.